Okay, so a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago, I went to Haiti for a week. My purpose for being there will be explained by watching the slideshow. And I thought I'd put a slide together that kind of it's a way for me to show the images and annotate them because I feel there's some value in that. This is we flew into the Dominican Republic because there was no commercial flights into Haiti, and this is at the border actually. You can kind of get an idea of what that's like. You can see the damage already as you drive across the border. This is some sort of flooding that's occurred there. I don't know when that was from, if that was from the earthquake. I don't think it was. But you can just sort of see as you go into Haiti, it gets a little bit poorer. This is when we were waiting. We had to wait an hour for our passports to be cleared at the border. You can see the bus that we traveled in on to Haiti from the Dominican Republic, and we played football, soccer with the kids. That was fun. You can kind of see an atmosphere shot here of the bus. And you drive into Haiti and you don't really notice much apart from it being, it's a third world country. It's very deforested. But otherwise, it was actually surprising how little earthquake damage I saw on sort of the outskirts of Port-au-Prince. But you start to notice things like people sleeping outside and, wonder why that is because this guy doesn't look too homeless. And it seems that a lot of people are sleeping on the street because they're literally too scared to sleep in their own homes because they think it's going to collapse. A lot of people have died from buildings literally collapsing on top of them during earthquakes and during aftershocks. There's been further collapse of buildings. Another interesting thing about this is if you look at the UN sign on the back in the background here, it's crossed out, which I'll talk more about that later, but just keep that in mind. They burn their trash in the street. This is actually down by the port in the central area of Port-au-Prince, and that's quite a regular occurrence. You can see how some of the people live in Port-au-Prince in the slums. That's probably the worst I've seen in the world. Um, Gives you a general idea. This is a refugee camp, just kind of the the still life images you can pick out of something that's such a mess and so downtrodden, really. This is kids playing or bathing themselves in a cracked pipe in the street. That's fairly normal. And lots of people are doing that. And it's actually kind of nice because they're keeping themselves clean. That's very important. Helps stop the spread of disease. And then have a little curious child jump in front of the camera. It made for a great shot. And you can see them cleaning themselves. Actually looks fairly clean in general. This is just a general atmosphere, same port area. You can see the fruit on the right and people selling. They carry on with their day in Haiti. This is 2 weeks after the earthquake, 3 weeks after the earthquake. And you just get quite vibrant images like this. This woman didn't want to have her face shown in the photograph, so she put her hat on. This is at the airport. You can see this is kind of nonchalantly walking through, and you take a photograph of cracks, but felt quite symbolic to me because the airport building is it's in a bad state. It's close to collapse, and people just walk through. You can see the damage from the earthquake everywhere, and it hasn't been fixed. And apparently, the control tower of the airport was damaged during the earthquake, and that's why the military had to take over flight control operations, air traffic control. So you can see the kind of damage this is the downtown area of Port-au-Prince. It's probably the most affected area. Apparently, the aftershocks collided, the shock waves collided there. Um, I would say 30% of the buildings are collapsed in the central area, with most of them having some sort of structural damage. What you can see is that some of the buildings have collapsed, as you can see here on the right, but a lot of them are still standing or have relatively minor damage. If this earthquake happened in a Western country, I'm fairly certain not a lot of damage would happen. It has to do with how architecturally sound the buildings are in the first place. This is someone walking across a collapsed building, which I thought was kind of bizarre, considering there could be people buried in there. But never mind. And this is also down by the port. And if you notice, I'll go back one image. This is a corner unit of a street, and most of the corner buildings are collapsed. Where there's rows of houses, they kind of seem to have supported each other. Not in all cases, but I noticed that a lot of the corner buildings specifically on street corners are collapsed. here's just some more atmosphere of Haiti. I wanted to kind of put a slideshow that shows the atmosphere, and it's a way to communicate what I saw. This is fires, same thing, burning trash, just makes it look kind of dramatic, and with some motion blur, I think that really is an image that works. You can see some of the damage. I thought it was funny that the door is still kind of standing and the rest has collapsed. I don't know anything about this building. It was just a shot I took kind of while traveling through Port-au-Prince. Same thing, you can see how damaged this building is. The foundations or something was wrong with it because the top seems intact, and this used to be a nice street. And if you notice on the right, the SOS signs, we need help, we need water, medical, etc. This is, everyone has seen this in the papers, the presidential palace. My take on it, it's kind of symbolic because when you go there, you notice that it's not as bad as you think it is, and a lot of the buildings are collapsed, but the palace has kind of taken the biggest hit, and the central area where all the government buildings are. And I think it's partly got to do with they have probably cut corners in their construction to save money, and now they've paid the price. I mean, that's a horrible thing to say. Architecturally, I don't mean in terms of human loss of life. That wouldn't be a fair thing to say. This is on the road that the airport is on. Please help this family. The guy knows to target in English, and he also knows where to go. They've obviously been given some biscuits and are eating them. But like any good entrepreneur, he's got the sign up, and I'm sure it's helping him. You see this SOS just strewn across while they're building to rebuild the roads, working to rebuild the roads, which is happening all over. When I got there, they had started clearing up a lot of the streets. So it's an infrastructure point. You've got to be able to get around. There's also a lot of color I noticed about Haiti. It's actually fairly colorful. And I went to kind of photograph the good things and the things that people were doing to actually help. I didn't want to show a lot of destruction, so what I just showed you is kind of a bit of atmosphere. A little bit more color, the tap-tap buses. And you see, there's a lot of Western people there helping in the hospitals, helping whenever they can. People who are not trained medically are, there's always things that can be done in the hospitals, working with the children or whatever. Lots of babies. This is in the Miami University Field Hospital. They have a kind of semi-maternity unit in their little area where a lot of the newborns are, and midwives are helping with births, etc. And they're being given the basic medical care. You can see this guy Josh. He'd actually learned in a very short time, comparatively, what all the names of all the surgical equipment are, and how to keep them sterilized. And he took over that function. He's a volunteer. He came and kind of fit himself into this function because previously medical personnel who were trained for years, were doing all the sterilization, which means they can't then at that point do operations. So Josh himself is responsible for saving many lives because doctors can actually concentrate on doing operations, not having to spend hours every day cleaning surgical equipment. And here he is having a requisition from a surgeon for a piece of equipment he's looking for. This isn't blood, it's disinfectant liquid. This is some doctors preparing a lady for an operation, and they were kind enough to let me in to photograph the good work that they're doing at the Miami University Field Hospital that's been set up in the grounds of the Haiti International Airport. This is after an operation. They take patients to wherever they need to go. They have various kind of areas, including an isolation tent camp, which I thought was interesting because there's no air conditioning, there's nothing. It's just isolation tents, and you imagine the real hot heat, 90 to 100 degrees, like 35 to 38 degrees in the middle of the day. And they are, I guess, you would be happy if you were in hospital grounds, even if you had to go into an isolation tent in the middle of the heat. This is Nicole. She works in water and sanitation and was working to clean up these shower units. The writing says, "Don't defecate here, please," and also denotes which units are for women, which are for men. She had cleaned them up to kind of provide a place where people who are in the hospital, Haitians who are in the hospital, can have bucket showers. And you can see how they looked before she did her work. And a lot of people like that are doing very good things to help. And actually, one of the things that I was very impressed with is the military of various countries. It's not what you would expect if you've never really had a lot of interaction with military. They were really helpful. The U.S. military has got a huge presence there, and I think kind of taking a PR function to keep order rather than using a lot of force. Although there's a huge presence, it's keeping calm, and I think they can be credited with keeping a lot of organization in a situation that really has no order. You can see the living conditions in refugee camps around Haiti. Pointing the camera at people, you still get smiles, you still get warmth. It's incredible, and you can see that they do manage to keep some things clean. There's clean pots, there's shelter, even if it's sheets, but there's some grace to it. And the kids, they play on. They have seesaws and football and make up games like any kids would. So it's really nice to see they have their spirit carries through. He's playing with a plastic ring and a stick, chasing after it, and he's having the time of his life in a refugee camp. And here you can see it kind of makes for some pretty still life images. I think this is a repeat actually. Um, Pretty innovative use of sticks and sheets and to provide shelter. I don't know how it's going to work for the rainy season. I'll find out when I go on my next Haiti trip, which I leave for in a couple of days. This is on the side of the road near the airport, and people have set up camp wherever they can find some space. So it's a real situation. These are UN tents, I believe, or maybe another organization. Kind of reminded me of the movie District 9, sort of a camp for Haitians to move into. I haven't seen anyone move in, um, and this doesn't look very occupied, so time will tell what will happen with these, but they can be seen all over the place, kind of just camps for shelter. Again, kids playing in the street with burst water pipes, which I find ironic because a lot of people are missing water. So this is in the downtown area. Um, and this is a child sheltering himself from the sun. I just wanted to take a photograph and actually had to ask him to repose because as soon as I pointed the camera, he changed from what you see there to looking at me and smiling and being a wonderful, royal, beautiful child. And I wanted to capture that moment, so I asked him, but at least I fully disclosed it, so I don't feel bad about having asked him to pose for a photograph in a specific way. This is one of the orphanages that's sprung up and is actually being run admirably well by people who've just come to help in coordination with established orphanage organizations. A lot of orphanages have collapsed or their buildings collapsed or children died, and obviously because of the earthquake there is a lot of new orphans. This orphanage, when I was there, had about 100 people, 100 kids. They now have about 170, and I'm going to go back and do some work with them sort of early March. Um, they actually set up kind of near the airport. You can see how close they are. It's one of the Hercules military transport planes flying by. But you can see also they have tents. They have people looking after them and shelter and latrines and some sort of basic human needs. They're absolutely incredible. Westerners fascinate them, and there's a lot of interaction with the kids. It's kind of you have to be a figure for them when you're there. They mob you when you arrive, and someone as exotic as Johnny here with his tattoo, that's the kids love that. They're given basic medical care, whatever they need, antibiotics, vaccines to keep them well, basically. You can see that here. They're working with various medical teams. The Hungarian medical team on the day I was there shooting came to help with whatever was needed with the kids, diagnose kids and fix things, legs, whatever. Help for Orphans was an organization that was doing a lot of work there. I shot this for them, and I'll be working again with them when I go back to Haiti. They provided at this orphanage clean water, a water filter system, and all the orphans have cups. They have to kind of take care of them themselves, and I suppose they're a prized possession, but it's a big deal. You have in a hot country you have to have water. Anyway, you have to have water, but these kids get that and can kind of take a rest from the sun and drink some water. This is the kids again, just more atmosphere. This is kids being given hot water to clean their hands with before a meal, and line up like the best of Brits. And happy then to have their photo taken after cleaning their hands. And then they get their lunch, which is also provided by the orphanage. There they go. They're eating breakfast muesli, which is a luxury. And you can really see the kids kind of gaining weight and becoming healthy through just the basic, food, water, other needs. This is some volunteers, carpentry volunteers, or people who just had carpentry skills, got some wood, and built the tables that the orphans were just eating on in the previous image. So any volunteer work is really valuable. This child specifically was malnourished for a long time, and you can see he's very slim. And when I was there, within the space of about 3 days, I could see him getting better and kind of fattening out and gaining some shape. So that's a really touching thing to see, that a child goes from being malnourished to coming into a point where their body is recovering and getting some much needed nutrition, and then also becoming happier as a person. This is the kind of waiting for school moment. The kids are lining up for class, and they don't only get taught in this orphanage. They don't only get taught Creole and French, which are the languages spoken there. Creole is kind of a mix. It's a language made up out of French and kind of other slang. And I heard that the idea was that it would be as different from French as possible, so that French people couldn't understand the language of the Haitians. But in this orphanage, they are also teaching English, which is a big skill for the kids to have if in the future, they can get into tourism or even work abroad on international projects. It's a huge, huge help. When I was there, an Argentinian football player, Matias Carreras, came and offered his services to help teach the kids football, which was really nice because it gives them a project. And the orphanage is working on a lot of projects to kind of get kids active and doing stuff. Here they are playing football. When you want to give children not just an education and somewhere to live, but also projects they can do, something to keep them going. They're working with L'Athletic de Haiti, which is an organization set up by Bobby Duval. He was CNN's Person of the Week a couple of weeks ago. I saw that when I got back to New York after being in Haiti, and he was featured on CNN. I thought I was just there. 24 hours ago, I was speaking to him, and his work got recognized. He has 1,300 kids that he gives one meal a day and provides the space where they can play football. He provides football training, field and track for the children. The ultimate goal is to help keep kids off the street, give them something that they can progress towards and have a goal towards. It's really amazing work. He's been doing it since before the earthquake, and he has 1,300 kids. And he's also set up space on his site there where he's provided for refugees to live temporarily while they rebuild their lives. You can see field and track. And they're working with the orphanage that I was working with to provide those kind of services and help the kids with football. One of the problems that they have is that a lot of the bone structure of the Haitian kids is too brittle because of malnutrition. So that's why he's giving them one meal a day. That's very important to help them become strong physically, because they're fantastic football players, but they physically aren't up to kind of professional levels. And the idea is to hopefully maybe get a Haitian team into the World Cup at some point, which would be a fantastic achievement. I did portraits of all of the kids in the orphanage. There's about 100 of them, and when I go back, I'll do the rest. And I thought long and hard about how I would do these portraits, and I figured out in the end I would stick them into the sun. That's the environment. Stick them into the sun. That sounds horrible, but put the children into the environment that they are in every day. I wanted to kind of show the grace and the beauty of the kids, but also the condition that they live in, um, and why they need sponsorship and why it's so important. You know, they're in the sun all day, they're exposed, but they're so happy and such royal and beautiful children. And you can kind of see, I hope I achieved that in terms of doing kind of portraits. We put them in the left of the frame so that their names and data like that could be recorded in the right. And they are now all featured on a website, thefutureofhaiti.org, where they're hoping to get sponsorships for each child until their 18th birthday. Um, and they're providing the whole gamut of medical and food and shelter and education until they're 18. And really, the naming, thefutureofhaiti.org, is aimed to show that these kids really can have the potential to, with good education, to be better than just orphans who kind of got taken in and fed, but can really be helped to, with education, to be the future of Haiti, you know, even as young as 3 months. So, and just look at how cute and amazing these children are. And he he was crying and on the day that I got there, but I heard since that he is now happy. He was found recently, not found, but he came to the orphanage recently and had, you know, been having a hard time and wasn't eating. And since then, since that point, started eating and chilled out a bit and stopped crying constantly. We couldn't get him to stop crying for the picture, but I suppose if it helped him get a sponsorship, then fair game. You know, he's going to be fine. This is Amateur. It's a bit of a sad story. He's got a head wound on the front and on the back of his head. He came to the orphanage the day I was doing this shoot, and one thing that we really noticed is that he was very afraid of contact. He'd actually been passed over to the orphanage by the U.S. military because he'd been roaming the streets for weeks since the earthquake, and his parents must have died or something. Must have died in the earthquake or become separated from him, and he'd obviously been abused on the streets. He had wounds. He was afraid of human contact. But after the third day I was there at the orphanage, he was interacting with the other kids and just doing much better. Those mental wounds will take some time to heal, but physically he's doing better, and he's now in a safe place, and he'll learn again to trust other human beings. And it was actually kind of a sad story because we had when I was taking pictures of all the kids, we asked them to hold up a board with their name and their age. And while most of them could remember their name, they knew their name. Amateur didn't. He didn't know his birthday, and he didn't know how old he was. So we had to estimate it for him. But to me, it really affected me because it's almost a very basic human right that you know when you were born, where you were born, where you come from in that regard. And not to remember or know, that's never going to come undone. He's never going to know. And that really affected me, and I had to take a break from the shoot for a little while. Um, and the other thing is we wanted to do the pictures so that the kids could be identified with. They're not up for adoption, they're only up for sponsorships, because it has happened that parents have just become disconnected from their children without the children knowing, and through the earthquake, we wanted to get the pictures up on a website where they can be seen and potentially reunite them with their parents if they still have some. And in this picture you can see, you know, it's actually at the orphanage, and the girls, they have real attitude at whatever age. You know, some of them are from the street and have been living there and have been toughened up beyond their years. Um, and it was just kind of refreshing to see that mix of childlike innocence in a way, because that's what tough kids are to me. It's really an innocent thing because they don't really know. Um, and she had some real attitude, and I actually felt it was refreshing. There's a lot of work being done also to get people inoculated. Tetanus is a disease that kills a lot of people still in Haiti, and you can see this. You know, people are scared of you can just kind of see the emotions that people go through. If you notice on the girl on the right, she already has scars on her arm. Looks like she's had a rough time, and she's getting her inoculation, but she's not too happy about it. Um, you can. It's a large program actually, getting the inoculations done, because a lot of people haven't had them or have prejudice or not not quite keen to get them, as you can see in this boy's face. But then when they have it, they're usually quite proud. I mean, this is at Geskio. It's an AIDS clinic, and there's a slum or refugee camp next to it, and there's a lot of inoculations happening. And a U.S. Marine or soldier is, the boy is proudly showing him that he's been inoculated, and the boy on the left looking on. I thought that was a moment I had to capture and show. This is boys showing their inoculation certificate very proudly. For them it means life in some cases. They won't die, and their life expectancy is increased. This is Brian. He and I actually ended up on the bus. I was sitting him next to him on the bus from the Dominican Republic into Haiti, and he's telling me all about his women's rights work that he was hoping to do in Haiti. And I was out shooting with a journalist friend of mine, Mike Kirby, and we stopped, and because there was some sort of protest going on, it seemed quite peaceful. So we got off our transport and kind of hung around and found out what was going on, and I bumped into Brian again, and he basically mobilized a bunch of a lot of the women from a camp that he was staying at, because they had some problems with getting water and tents, and they were protesting, and they were chanting a slogan, um, tents not guns, because what was happening is that to keep the peace, people were, the UN or what, and this is what I was referencing earlier, the UN was going through camps with guns just to kind of keep peace, yet water is not being distributed. And the women don't have tents, and that's going to be a real issue when the rainy season comes. And you can kind of see the military presence at this protest. But the water and food distribution is an issue in Haiti. You can't drive a truck with 100,000 liters of water into an area with 60,000 people and expect it to be easily distributed. It's one point of distribution. You're going to get mobbed. So that's been a big logistical nightmare in Haiti, and it's understandable why there's problems with the water and food distribution. Um, Actually, as part of one of the solutions, this is still pictures from the protest, by the way, um, is to set up a lot of water distribution points all over Haiti, so that when the rainy season comes, people can filter their own water, and it's 1,000 people to one water source, then rather than 60,000 people to one truck that's coming in. People having to hire private security, or the military has to go on food drops. It's a real situation, and there's a lot of military presence. Again, this is just around the camp from where I was staying, the Canadian Air Force doing their work. I'm just kind of providing some atmosphere shots of what it was like there. This is women, locals get employed to help wash the laundry of people who are doing relief work. It's actually providing a lot of work, this kind of, the whole relief effort, to locals who've had, lost their jobs and can now do something. Just a bit of atmosphere. U.S. Marines, or I think these might be Canadian guys, playing American football on the field next to the airport. I didn't have the energy to it's so hard to do any exercise, but the military guys are obviously a bit more physically fit. Um, just kind of some atmosphere. This is where I would have hung my clothes if I hadn't packed enough for the trip, and kind of the living conditions, even of the volunteers who are doing a really, really amazing job. Um, yeah, that's about it. I wanted to show that. I felt that a slideshow with kind of relating my experiences was the best way of doing that. Thanks if you made it all the way through to here, and hope you can visit the website or follow me on Twitter or add me on Facebook. If you just go to felixkunz.com, everything's on there. And keep track of my next Haiti trip, or if you watch this later, just go to my website. I'm sure there'll be more results from that. I'm going to be there for about a week, working with helpfororphans.org, or Help for Orphans International, and the people that are running or helping to run the other orphanage. And that's work that really kind of hit home when I was there. It was really admirable, and I want to support that through what I do, through photography. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I like my future work, and we'll get in touch on Twitter. Thank you.